Today, we are going to focus a little bit more intensely in California than some of our other markets. Let me get my other screen share going. So my objective today is really just to lay the foundation of what is Headset Insights, how do we get to a sample of the total market from approximately 15 to 25% coverage of the market, upwards of 75% depending on the market that we're talking about, all the way into that full market read. And one of the big questions that I usually get when I start working with folks is like, well, what exactly is Headset Insights? So insights is a predicted, it's actually not even the forecast isn't a great word here, but it's a predicted projection of the adult use market in California's case. And in some of our other markets, adult use and medical cannabis. And I do have a cheat sheet that I'll send out after this meeting that goes through each and every market, what our current coverage is as of today, and what is covered in terms of adult use medical, and in some select cases, even hemp CBD versus marijuana-derived CBD, depending on what you're interested in. All of the information that we're going to be looking at in Insights is before consumer paid tax and after discount. It's all looking at retail sales dollars and unit volume. And all of our data is real time. And at Headset, we define real time in Insights as current as yesterday. So the refresh happens around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning every day. So if you're a late to bed or a very, very early riser, just double check that you have that day's data before you start doing your analysis. Our Insights platform is built off of our retailer point of sale. So at Headset, we really started 5, 6, almost 7 years ago now at this point. After our founders sold Leafly to Privateer Holdings, we've been in the space for a very long time. We started with our partnerships with our point of sale companies. So we partner with over 27, almost 30 different point of sales. And we have an ETL process to get all of their data via API into a standardized data structure. We house all of that in the Headset Vault. Vault is hosted off of Snowflake, so it runs through a couple of additional processes there. And that's our secure data warehouse that powers our 3 in-app solutions, Retailer, Bridge, and Insights. Retailer has really got a couple of tracks that it can run through, great for inventory management, understanding who your customer is, being able to do target marketing and measure results from those campaigns. And Bridge does the same, but it's for brand partners or distribution partners who are looking to connect with their retailers at a deeper level. So initially in Washington, where we started, it's a very robust program. I work with a couple of folks who have over 250 connected doors. And in Washington, we only have about 300 stores here. So they're in and connected to almost every retailer that they sell to. They offer vendor managed inventory for those retailers. They're able to log into their system, write up a proposed order, send it to the purchaser, say, does this look good? And they say yes, and all of that order goes seamlessly. They've been able to reduce inventory carry. I've worked with a company called Have a Heart. They were acquired by Harvest. They were able to reduce their inventory carry in the back by about 42%, and they were able to reduce out of stock days by 36% by allowing their vendors to manage their inventory there. And what we're looking at today is Headset Insights. So it's really built through a follow-up data process after this slide, and I'll go over that next. So everything that we looked at on the Vault is really a big picture, what is happening here at Headset, how does our data flow from a retail point of sale all the way through into our tools. But to be able to make a projection of the market, we do also need to ingest outside data sources. So we look at, and everything I just covered is step 1 in this data process slide. We do look at sales tax data in the case of California and almost every other state. We do know that most people are a little bit late in filing their taxes. The same is true in cannabis. California had to make massive restatements, upwards of 30 to 40%. For a couple of quarters in, I believe it was 2021, due to delayed tax submission. And Headset data was within 1% because we also ingest things like publicly traded financials. And we've been doing this for a very long time in the industry, and we're connected directly into the retail point of sale. So we don't have to wait for retailers to submit a CSV. We get their actuals directly from their point of sale. We aggregate all of that data and anomalize it and normalize it and map all of those products into a standardized database to get a market view. What this looks like is a bunch of series of codes that we use. So we have an intense data infrastructure within Headset, and we have a couple of folks who handle data engineering. They've bought what I call little robots. They're actually machine learning algorithms, and they go in and auto catalog all of these products. So when we get products in from the retail point of sale, I might have Grow Up Farms OG Chem pre-roll that is spelt like Fat Panda OG Chem pre-roll. And then I might also have that same product with OG Chem is one word. It might be missing the word pre-roll. It might not even be categorized with a package size, so I might not know that that's a 1 gram. Our machine learning algorithms sort all of these products from the manual entry in the point of sale, and they make suggested predictions for what category it is, what's the package size. My favorite example of when I've seen this is we had a product that came into the system and it clearly had the word pipe in it. As a human, I know that a pipe is non-cannabis. Our little robots are not humans. And so they said, hey, one of them said, I think this is a vapor pen. And then the next checkpoint said, I think this is a pre-roll. Both of those were wrong, and we fixed that by introducing data entry specialists. So we have a whole team of product catalog managers. We outsource some of this. We do have a couple in-house, but we use a company called Sama who does data entry for Google, as well as Facebook, and a couple of other major data players in the industry. And they go through and they say, oh, I see that this says pipe. This is non-cannabis. I'm going to tag that out of the system. That's not going to flow into Insights. Insights is only going to report on cannabis products. And they'll also go through and manually link all of the suggested products into a master SKU. We aggregate all of that data to reduce some of the noise. So that looks like making that OG Chem pre-roll that I described in all of its disparate formats one SKU. And we apply statistical methods to be able to ensure accuracy. This starts all the way back at step 1 when we're actually even just going and collecting retails to sample from. So our VP of Analytics works very closely with our retail acquisition team to be able to get a good urban and rural split. We do distribution split. So in California, for example, we want to make sure that as an individual county starts to legalize, that we have retail coverage within that county itself. We did that last year and the year before with a couple of groups that came online. Jeff, I saw that you unmuted there. Did you have a question? Jeff, I still can't hear you. So if you do have a question, please use the chat. And if anyone wants to shout out and make sure that my audio is working correctly, we could do that too. Agatha, do you mind just saying a hello real quick and we can see if my audio is working?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Perfect, and I can hear you. So Jeff, let us know if you have questions, use the chat, please, because I'm not able to hear you right now. So I was talking about our sampling in not just California, right? We're looking to have urban and rural splits. I think in Canada, it's very important, and in a lot of other markets, but Canada is a big one where they have a lot of really big chains of stores. So we work with folks like Spirit Leaf and Dutch Love. Those are not the only retailers we work with there. So we want to make sure that we have the mom and pops shops as well. And what we're really looking to have is we want stores that tell us, well, not just what we're connected to, but can they tell us about the market where we don't have coverage? So we are looking at how can we get an average representation of what the market looks like. Every night we run in steps 5 and 6, we run our projections. Those are tested twice monthly. So at the end of every month, we go in and we build our our projection methodology for the next month, and that will run through. So as the system runs through this process, it'll run through that projection. And then mid-month, we go in and check, okay, compared to our sample, were our projections accurate? If they aren't, we will make minor adjustments at week 2 in the month. And then we go and shore that up whenever the publicly available information is announced. So in Washington, that's every single month. In Colorado, that's every other month. In California, that's once a quarter. It does vary by market pretty dramatically. So you will see minor restatements to the data, and I highly recommend accessing our knowledge base, and I'll share this article with you in my follow-up for best practices on using real-time data. If anything is, if any adjustments to our forecasts are made up or down more than 4%, we will send out a big announcement via a solution that we have in app called Beamer. So you'll get a little pop-up that says, hey, this has been updated in the system. You might want to go back and make some adjustments to any past analysis that you've done. I mentioned that there are some major differences across some of our markets. So just to highlight two of the extremes, in Michigan, I really need to update this top line coverage. We're actually at about 29.5%. Hasn't changed too much since September of last year. But in Michigan, we're forecasting both adult use and medical. And we are using the state sales tax data. In California, we are also using state collected sales tax information. One thing to call out though is sales tax is not applied to medical transactions, so we are not guessing at the medical market. We are only reporting on adult use. One thing I like to call out for all my California people is California publishes their state collected sales tax, as I mentioned, quarterly, but they can adjust it for up to 6 months. And I mentioned the adjustments that were made in 2021. Those were made a year after, so quite a bit of time had lagged. What we've found in our secret sauce is the best way I can describe it, because some of the data analytics that we do here is a little bit of magic. We have gotten to a place where we really only adjust our sample in California. The largest adjustment I've seen in the last maybe year and a half since COVID really shook our ability to forecast regularly. We had to forecast on a weekly basis during COVID, sometimes on a daily basis. I haven't seen a big adjustment in California since probably 2020. Some use cases that I work with folks who are, I can use words today, y'all. Some use cases that I work with folks on most often is looking to find white space in the market. So can we expand our product line? Are there strains that aren't being offered in the market that we have genetics on? I've worked with a group in Michigan looking at California data even to be able to find out what California strains are performing really well that we're not seeing in the Michigan market. A lot of folks are using this to track brand performance. So how is our brand doing and how is our brand doing compared to other brands in the market? And then a lot of pricing analysis, right? How are we positioning ourselves from a pricing perspective? You know, especially in California right now, as pricing is getting really compressed, there are a lot of fine-tune adjustments that we can look at for pricing. And even looking more macro in our line, are we offering, say, good, better, best pricing, or are we really just trying to own one pricing bucket? And then I work with a ton of folks on new product development. This is by no means an extensive use case list. I have about a 25-page document that barely covers some of the more common use cases that I've worked with people in my 3-ish years at Headset. So lots of other things that we can do. I know Jeff has a particular use case that's not going to be listed here, but it's still something that we can answer when we're starting to look at cost as opposed to retail price. Before we jump in app, I do want to touch on Headset's taxonomy. So when we think about a market, say California, we break that market into 9 categories. The slide does say 10. That's because in Canada, we do have a 10th category called oil that we don't see in the US. They usually don't have tinctures because they're not allowed to have ethanol-based suspensions. And we break those into over 80 segments. So in the example that I have on the slide here, it's a little cut off, but we have our category of flower. And then for our segments, we break that into CBD, hybrid popcorn, indica, specialty, and infused. At Headset, we are not growers. We do not want to talk about the phenotypes of plants. That is not our expertise. We are really great with data. So we do some web scraping with Leafly to be able to attribute different strain informations into these buckets. If a product's just, hey, we're a hybrid pre-roll, that's really easy for us to categorize. But for some of the strain specifics, we do lean on Leafly to be able to classify those products. In addition to our category and segment breakdown, we've had people ask us a ton of questions about what are different attributes that are associated to a product. So we'll stay in flower. I can have an 1/8, which is the package size. That might be a hybrid 8th. So let's say, gosh, this one is very controversial, but Leafly recently changed ACDC to being a hybrid strain instead of a CBD strain. So I'll highlight that here for anyone who might want to chit chat about that later. But it could be a hybrid ACDC strain. And I was having a lot of folks trying to download all of our SKU data and then go in and look for that additional strain attribute, because in our taxonomy structure of category and segment, we don't have a great way to look at strain. So we introduced a whole new series of attributes and dashboards called metadata, which stands for the many-to-many attributes that can be associated with a different product. So again, flower, we're mostly going to be looking at strains. We can dive into vapor pen extraction type, the vapor pen hardware type, what are the flavors on edibles and beverages, in the pre-roll space and even in the beverage space, how many, what's the pack count and how many joints are in a pack or how many cans are in a pack, are the main ones that I work with folks on. We do have a couple of other flags looking at some cannabinoids. So looking at CBD, is this CBD or not? Same thing for CBG, CBN as well. And we're always looking for additional attributes. So if you do have anything that you'd like to see us slice the data by, please let me know. I know in flower, a lot of folks have asked me about like indoor versus outdoor grow. We currently don't have that in the system, and it's a huge research project on our side, so we are investigating it. So if that's one of your questions and you're really in the flower space, just know it's not going to be there for you today, but if you reach out to me, I can show you some tips and tricks that I've used. We'll cover most of it in the competitive analysis. I use the dashboards for competitive analysis a lot to group together brands by their grow type. The rest of this deck covers some quick tips on how to use the system itself, but I find that I learn by watching. So I'm going to jump into the app as opposed to walking you through some super fun slides that show you how to zoom in and zoom out on the screen. So Jeff, before we move on, do you have any questions on kind of what is insights and some of our methodologies that we use? Right, I saw Jeff go on mute, so I'm going to move us over to an app, and I am going to be walking through our headset internal system today. So this may be different from your subscription. So if you're only subscribed to one or two categories, the data will look different in specific parts, and I'll highlight where those are. As we're getting oriented with the overall system itself, I do want to call out that we have our industry reports available for you in app. This is a great resource for you to be able to go in and not have to do some of your own research. So our analysts will look into a deep dive into a space. Jeff, for you, it'll be a little bit further down. I'm going to expand my number of items per page in the bottom right-hand corner here. We do have a deep dive into flower. That was published on October 5th. So it's looking at the category as a whole across 2021. And it does do a bit of strain analysis in here. So we do recommend just giving that a read. And I'll move us out of here. This is my trick though in here. Sometimes this chat bubble can get in the way of going and clicking to the next page. So we now have 100 of these on this page, so it's going to be a little bit longer, but at the bottom of the page, you can go and expand the number of items per page. I did mention that we have in-app notifications. You do have to opt into these. We will only ever notify you in-app, and if you've already logged in, you've probably already gotten that little pop-up that says, can we send you notifications? If you said no, every once in a while it will bug you and say like, hey, would you like to opt into these? This is where we would announce something like a change in forecasts. And we also announce all of our industry reports and any surveys or feedbacks that we have. This one, for example, we need your feedback here. We're asking to see, do people want to have an easier way to pull insights data into Excel? So it would be an Excel plugin. You wouldn't even have to go in app. You'd be able to just log into your Excel or open Excel and log into Headset Insights and pull specific data points from there. All right, so we've gone over some of those basics. Probably don't need to go into the settings too much here, but I do like to let people know where your settings are. They're in your initials in the bottom left-hand corner. And I am going to use our sidebar navigation menu to jump into Insights. And Jeff, since it's just us, I'm going to stay fully in California for you, and we'll go into a couple of dashboards that we didn't get into yesterday. So it's essentially like your private training through a group training session. So yesterday we walked through this market size comparison, which regardless of your subscription is a great place to come and look at the top line numbers within the market. It's also your default landing page. So whenever you walk into Insights, you're going to see this screen every single time. And it's a part of our category level dashboard. So those are our dashboards that only go down to the category level. So in that taxonomy structure that I was talking about, you're not going to get into segments. So you're not going to get into hybrids. You're not going to get into package size. You're not going to have information about brands or SKUs within these first 8 dashboards. What you do have access to is the total market, regardless of your subscription. Or in some markets where we only have a category level read, we're still working on growing our sample size. So I'm going to click on a couple of them here. So in Arizona, Illinois, Massachusetts, and Maryland, this is the place where you will come for that lighter level read that we have for those markets. Do have a couple of those coming on the roadmap, likely Massachusetts first, followed by Arizona, and then I think Illinois will be next after that. So again, I'm not going to go into these category level dashboards today because Jeff and I walked through them yesterday. So we're going to jump straight into the overview section. We did publish the COVID Insights live. We were writing all these daily blog posts about what was happening in COVID. The first week that it was happening, and our VP of Analytics said, hey, I'm using these dashboards I built for myself. I'm going to push them in apps so people have access to them. I really hope we don't have another pandemic, but if something like that was to happen again, Liz would likely do something similar for you. Most people aren't using these dashboards anymore, and they're likely to be sunset here probably towards the end of this year. Everything in Insights is going to be organized on this side navigation menu. You've probably noticed me clicking open these little toggles here. So this will allow you to access the subsequent dashboards within each section. The overview section, pretty obvious there. So overview is going to be high-level overviews. We'll make one big call out. Our most detailed dashboard in Insights, 2 of our most detailed dashboards in Insights are tucked away in this overview section. Those are our new products, so products that have been launched within the last 90 to 180 days, as well as Product Finder, which is a super fun dashboard to come in and play around with. It's initially what people were kind of poking and pulling strains out, and I'll show you some creative ways to use that dashboard. But first, we're going to start in our market overview. This dashboard is going to give us a high-level overview of our subscribed categories. So if we are only subscribed to flower in the market, this dashboard will summarize just the flower category of the market. So if you do want to see, if you do have a limited category subscription and you want to see the entire market, again, you'll need to go back up to these category level dashboards. I am going to look in the last I don't want complete year, the last full year in California as we go through this. I do have to come in, and these circles indicate that I need to single select my market here. And I'm going to press this little purple run button. It updates my filters. Ooh, and then I'll give it some time to load. So the scary drop off that I said woo about is because we're 12 days into the month. So for me, a lot of times, as I mentioned, as I said, I don't want to do complete years. The reason I don't want to do complete years is that'll only look at 2021, and I do want to get a little bit more current. But one thing to note, depending on your date range, if you're only 12 days into a month, this month is going to look pretty short. So in the last 1 year is just going to show us year to date here. It does look like we are starting to see an uptick in unit volume sales across California. That's very common during this time of the month. So usually we'll start to see a slowdown in some of our mature markets, so including Washington and Colorado. We'll start to see a slowdown towards, I don't know, I want to say like September, October, November, December. There's a little bit of up and down fluctuation week over week, but overall it starts to after Croptober in California starts to slow down a little bit, slows down into January. February, our shortest month, looks the smallest. And then we have daylight savings times and tax returns going out in March. And so we start to see an uptick in the market and consumer purchasing that remains high across the rest of the year until, again, starting in the fall time. And then after Croptober, really seeing some of those dips. So definite increase in unit volume. I expect that trend to continue. We have 420 next week. Year over year, California has been growing. One of the things that I'll call out as we're going through here is just the concept of base effect. So base effect is when there's an anomaly in the data. So if I am benchmarking anything against 2020, 2020 is a really weird year. I imagine in the future, data analysts will all over every industry will be like, don't forget to exclude 2020 from the data. It's something that Liz said, and I see that happening in the future. It was a very odd year. We saw huge astronomical sales, higher sales than 420 in March when people thought that stores were going to close. And even last year, where we're still seeing some of the residual effects, this year we're seeing unemployment is going down. There are definitely more places for people to spend their money as they're not just sitting at home and able to consume cannabis as often. And then we're not getting additional income. People aren't on the same unemployment benefits that they had previously. So benchmarking over 2020 for sure, but even like being really mindful when you're comparing against 2021, that the growth that we saw over those 2 years will be a little bit different than likely what we'll see in the future. Just something to keep in mind as you're running through any year over year or month over month analysis as we are here. I totally skipped over a little tool tip that we have for you. So on a lot of these graphs, we will have a little eye in a circle near the title of the visualization. You can hover over this to be able to better understand each visualization. You might have noticed the question mark near market overview. You can also click on that button. This will take you to the appropriate knowledge base article. So I'm not going to have time to walk you through each and every individual graph, but we do have some knowledge base articles for you to help do that. So this one would walk me through how and why I'd want to use the dashboards, as well as why I would want to use specific visualizations in my analysis. This dashboard hasn't changed very much, so it's a really great resource for this particular dashboard. All right, so Jeff, for you, I'm going to show you a tooltip and also show you what this would look like in your subscription. So if you are following along, these numbers will look a little bit different because I'm in an account that has all of California, whereas you're in an account that just has California flower. So I'm going to hold down my Alt key on my keyboard. I'm on a PC. I believe it's the Command key on a Mac. And I'm going to just select flower on my sidebar menu. So Jeff, this is probably a little bit more similar to what you're seeing within your data set here. You wouldn't have the additional categories layered in for the context, but we can see along with the market. So if we go back up here, you can see that unit volume definitely increased in March. It increased in March for flower as well. This is actually sales dollars, not unit volume, but we're starting to see that slight uptick. In April, even though we're not quite halfway through the month, we're already looking at about close to half as prior sales. So as 420 happens, I expect to see this bar a little bit higher. Average item price, and I'm going to click off cultivation because I'm in an internal subscription. We don't offer cultivation as a category anymore. It was not something we're testing out here. So you won't see that in your own. And again, looking at California flower, we're looking for this orange line here. So flower on average across all package sizes is priced a little bit less than tinctures, capsules, and vapor pens, but it looks like vapor pen pricing is declining and starting to be more in line with flower pricing. So that's just one thing to keep in mind is if you have folks buying eighths or coming in and shopping for flower. Vapor pens are definitely increasing traction, especially across Gen Z. They are a big vapor pen and concentrate generation. So we're starting to see some changes there. It looks like even though we're talking a lot about how flower prices are decreasing, when we look month over month here, we do see slight decreases in flower. So about a 75% decrease overall in the cost of flower since January. We are looking at post-discount prices. So when we look at this for the month of April, one thing to keep in mind is that there's going to be heavy discounting in the middle of next week that might carry through a little bit before and a little bit after the 4/20 holiday. So that will also look like pricing compression within the category itself, but it'll most likely be heavily driven by discounts. The number one most consumed visualization on this market overview is really the brand ranking over time. And Jeff, this is going to rank just brands in the flower category for you. So you kind of get this sneak peek, and I'll send you this dashboard as a quick recap as well, so that you have like the total market standings. And I'll show you how I'm going to set that up for us today, like how to send an email. But Jeter, Steezy, and Kiva have really been holding their top spots for quite some time. Raw Gardens has also been in the top 5 in California for a while, but we can see that Kiva recently pushed out Raw Gardens. Jeter's definitely been continuing to increase as California infused pre-roll sales are actually trending counter to the market. So whereas the rest of the market has slightly declined, infused pre-rolls are on a rapid incline in the market itself. And Jeter is driving a ton of those sales. You can see that year over year, they've ranked up 7 spots. I saw Steezy do this, I want to say in 2019. So Jeter kind of following suit there with them. One brand y'all probably don't recognize is our house brand. And so in Headset Insights, we do our best to anonymize all of our data. So this means that if Connected Cannabis is selling their own brand sales within their stores, we're not going to show you their brand sales. So you will see Connected Cannabis within Headset Insights, and that is going to only look at connected sales outside of connected stores. All of their inside sales will be masked into house brand. I'm going to take a little bit of water, y'all. So house brand, I like to think of it as it's the Kirkland signature of all the brands. So it's that white label cannabis by the stores themselves. If you are looking to sell direct to stores, this is a great place to come and say, well, what is the average pricing of in-house sales? So you could click into this and it'll take you into the brand details page. Really didn't mean to make that drill this early, but I did it already. So we'll pull up into it and maybe stop here after this. I'll show you how to schedule an email because I wanted to do that on that last page. Not all of my filters carried over. Oh, we don't want to be in Canada, Ashley. So I am going to go and change us back into the US of A. Since I'm looking over the last year, I really don't want to look at this week over week. It's going to make my visualizations very busy. The system has automatically jumped me from my market overview page into my brand comparison section here within Insights. We are specifically looking at the brand details page, and this is intended to be an investor tear sheet, so to speak, of each brand. And so it'll tell you brand standing within the market, total brand sales within your date range, what is average units looking like. So we can see the average unit volume here for house brand or white labeled retail flower sales. Sorry, this is not just going to be flower sales, white labeled sales. Jeff, for you, this will just look at flower sales for those store brands. We see that they're following the overall market trend, right? So seeing February being a little bit higher than January, and then an increase in March even more so. Looks like most of this is flower, just looking through these top 10 products. That's not uncommon to see most of house brand sales being driven by flower and pre-rolls in particular. And it looks like the top strains that they're seeing are wedding cake, some of those really common strains, easy to grow. Blue Dream, we are seeing some Mendo Crumble, which I imagine might be a more limited offer. I would lean on maybe Agatha to know how often we see that in different retail stores. It might be a sneak peek into who's carrying that if you know the market. But our house brand is our #1 performer in flower. So I'm looking at the brand ranking by category here. #1 in flower, a little bit harder for them to perform in edibles and beverages, still ranking within the top 40, as well as vapor pens. But pre-rolls, and then let me scroll down here. Let's see, pre-rolls are 9th, flower #1. The very bottom here, you'll also get a list of their top products and their product sales current versus a year ago. So we just drilled from the biggest picture, what's happening in California, all the way down into a specific brand. If I was watching this brand regularly or wanting to watch the market regularly, what I'd probably do is schedule myself an email. And this is what a lot of my customers are currently doing. So if you scroll back up, you actually don't have to scroll all the way up. You can go to the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner. This is going to take you to your dashboard actions. So this is right next to our little run button that lets us load our page. And I'm going to schedule a delivery. We can also download the data, but if you're looking to download this type of data, I might recommend going to the the data export section over here on this side. Words can be a little bit difficult for me before 10 a.m. and I've only had 1 cup of coffee. But you have a whole section here that's intended for you to just be able to export actual files without having to sort through this whole download of individual little visualization downloads. So we're going to go back to scheduling this as a delivery. I don't play with the tooltips in Looker, but you can, I believe, use, Alt up arrow send or S to schedule a delivery. But I like to just click on that little button here. We'll call out the system auto defaults to a daily send. Most folks don't want these emails on a daily basis, especially since it's a little bit hard to read a PDF. So I recommend folks send this maybe weekly or monthly, depending on how frequently you're monitoring individual brands. And you can send this to yourself as a PDF or a CSV zip file. The zip file, like I said, well, it's going to be a zip file of individual files for each of the tiles on the visualization. It can be a little bit cumbersome to use, which is why I recommend exporting from the data export section. But for this, what a lot of folks do is they're scheduling that PDF. One of the tricks that I recently learned, thanks to one of our customers, is that you can go into the advanced options and select expand tables to show all rows. So this means on those tables at the bottom where I have like all of the products offered by this brand, or their total product sales current versus a year ago, if I was to send this without selecting this option, I will see the very short little list that I saw on my screen when I scrolled down to that. By clicking expand tables to show all rows, I'll actually be able to see the entire table in my email. So I do recommend doing this. If you are sending this to an individual, I highly recommend adding in a custom message as well. So if you're working with a coworker and you're like, hey, Bill, check out how House Brand is doing this year. That'll personalize it. All emails from the system come at info@headset.io. So when you're sending it to someone other than yourself, it's helpful to add some of that context. I am not going to send this email to myself. I get to look at House Brand probably again, maybe 2 or 3 times today. But I will take us back up to our market overview because, Jeff, I wanted to make sure I got you this overall market with the brand rankings. So this is kind of a little thanks for attending our training for you. And it'll also be a good example of how to send an email to a different person. All right. Give me 1 second, Jeff. I'm just making sure I have your email correct here. And of course, something freezes over here. We're all good. All right, so I'm going to resume my share. And Jeff, since this is a custom for you, I'll just send this over since you're my favorite and only guest today. Agatha's you've met yesterday. You'd still be my favorite because you're one of our newest customers. So I'm going to schedule this delivery to you. I'm going to only send this once. I don't think you want this every day. And I will paste your email address in here. I'm going to expand the tables to all rows, and this will give you that top 200 brand list in California. If you ever want this again, please just reach out to us, and I will make sure that we get you an updated list as well. Now Jeff has a sample of what those emails look like. Again, you can schedule those as reoccurring emails for yourself. I don't like to schedule reoccurring emails for other people just because it can get a little messy. If you ever want to change it, it's a little bit harder for us to go in and adjust the settings. So we've gone in and looked at the market overview. We clicked into a brand from this top line page because I had a curiosity about how House brand was ranking within the market itself. To deep dive into another category. So Jeff, I know that you're working on some, you're working within the flower space and have a couple of things that you'd want to look at, including different strains. We'll get into that in some of the metadata training session, but you'll also want to look into pricing. I do have a separate deep dive into pricing, but we're going to kind of sidetrack off some of our initial talk track here, mostly for you. So I'm getting into, let me walk through our menu real quick. I'm going from our market overview into our category details. So now I can get a little bit deeper into the flower category itself in California. Again, we do have our question mark here that'll take you to that article that we have pulled up over here, the help article. You can access all of those. Oh, she's loading very quickly. That's great. Through our help and support section here under getting started. Flower is king in almost every market. I think I've only seen one exception, and that was for a very short bit in Pennsylvania. Vapor pens are really big. So with mostly, for the most part, flower is king, but we are seeing flower market share in terms of dollar share start to decline. So historically, flower in California has owned about 43 to 48% of the overall market sales. I think when I first started in 2019, it was closer to over 50%. And eventually we saw vapor pens like starting to race a little bit with the flower category in California. Vapegate happened, and unfortunately, people were passing away due to vapor pens, and that did impact the market, and I think slowed the trajectory of the category a little bit more than most folks had expected. While the category recovered in terms of sales dollars, we didn't see the growth rate start to pick up to its pre-Vapegate levels. All right, friends, so in a category, we are starting to see our first inkling at segment, so really going down into that one level deeper. So hybrid is king in flower as well. So that's partly due to the fact that, like I said, ACDC, according to Leafly, has been moved from a CBD strain to a hybrid strain. So I do think it has the most strains available in it. But I do like to click it off and see of the indica sativa hybrids, and I've been hearing a lot of talk about popcorn lately, what else is trending in the market. Because hybrid is so big compared to some of the other segments, if I click on it in the menu, that'll allow me to get a better view of some of the underlying segments. So after hybrid, we're seeing indica, sativa, and hybrid popcorn performing and rounding out like our top 4. This little yellow line here is indica popcorn as well. So following the same trend that we see in the non-popcorn or littles or smalls segments. And we can group these segments together, and that will come in the next training since we only have about 10 minutes left. But Jeff, I wanted to give you a quick pointer for looking at some high-level pricing before we get into like a full breakdown of pricing analysis. So within the category, what we're looking at in this pricing visualization, again, is after discount before tax consumer price. And then the cost listed here is going to be the cost direct from the point of sale. And we're looking at EQ price and EQ cost. So this is the cost per gram. So we're normalizing the pricing by gram so that regardless of the package size, we're really looking at the same unit metric. And we can see even within this year that the average price per gram has started to decline. Average cost, looks like we saw a slight increase in cost, so 8 cents up in February. So retailers are paying a little bit more per gram for flower than they were in January. But so far, month to date, we're actually seeing a huge decrease in the average cost per gram that retailers are buying their flower for. This also breaks down by package size. Usually what I like to look at when I see huge shifts in EQ pricing and a big conversation of 2020 and 2021, where these larger like 14, 28 gram, 7 gram package sizes that previously didn't really own as much market share. We can see on the right-hand side here that our 8s are definitely our #1 package size within California. And again, we can click them off and to see if there are any package size trends that have changed that maybe correlate with some of the pricing trends that we're seeing. So one of the things that I'm looking at here is this red line, which is actually our 7 grams, are up 11% since February. So some of that change in pricing that we're seeing here could be due to more frequent purchasing of larger package sizes. So people are looking to be a little bit more economical about their purchases and buying stuff that's priced at a lower price per gram. Usually when we see a package size increase, the price per gram is a little bit lower, working with those economies of scale. And the last piece that I want to highlight down here is, especially as you're getting into doing some of your competitive analysis, which we'll talk about in our next session, we do have our top 30 brands as well as their market share. So on the left-hand side, what we're looking at is actually the idea of the Pareto principle, which is that usually about the top 20% of brands drive about 80% of revenue. In flower, what we see here is that house brand here. Let's scroll over to my table. Percent of total sales is going to be my market share, is about 8%. And when I get all the way back to a golden state, and I'll find them here, I'm going to use the Control F on my keyboard to look for golden state in the little list. So when we get to the last brand, we're actually only looking at about 47% market share. So in some of our more traditional packaged goods like edibles, even in vapor pens, and I'd say Jeter's really shifted the pre-roll market to kind of see that Pareto principle hold true. They really drive a huge amount of sales within the California market. Flower, we see a much wider distribution. So a lot of folks, even within the top 30, own less than 1% of the total flower market. Very, very competitive space to be in. Obviously, a lot of factors that you don't have in some of the more shelf-stable products. So grow conditions, who were affected by fires last year even, is something that I've had be a top conversation among outdoor growers in particular. And then we can take a peek into those top 50 products. I'm just trying to be mindful of time, so I want to give a quick recap of what we've covered, and also Jeff, give some opportunity for questions if you have any. Any questions? Agatha, you too, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in and ask them.
No questions for me, but that was just a great kind of high-level overview. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, Jeff, I'll be in touch with some more information for y'all, and we do have that pricing training coming up. I think that'll be particularly relevant for you. And thank you, Agatha. I will do a quick recap of what we're looking at, what we went over today. So today we went through how do we get insights data from a retail point of sale sample to the top line projection of the overall market. We dove into our market overview, understanding a little bit more about what's happening in the California market, some of my expectations with 420 around the corner, and I think it's in line with at least the retailers I work with, their hopes that we see 420 really do what it has pre-COVID, which has really just kicked off a really good selling season through the summer. We started to walk through our category details, and we took a deep dive into House Brand, again, that Kirkland signature brand of the cannabis industry, and started to dive into the flower category specifically for you, Jeff. So that was a little bit of a breakdown of what we're covering, and why this is important really is to understand what is happening in this space. It can be really tempting to go in and say, hey, I want to just do a deep dive pricing analysis. I really want to only understand costs. But sometimes when we don't have some of these higher level trends and go through some of these higher level dashboards, we end up not walking through what I think of it as a marketing funnel, to be honest, but really starting at the high level and funneling down in our analysis so that we don't make assumptions about any micro trends that could actually be really heavily impacted by the macro. So do encourage folks to walk through the market overview. Jeff, in your case, I would actually take a peek at the market size comparison dashboard, really just to understand macro what's happening in the market, and making sure that you're not associating total market trends to flower trends in particular. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Jeff, check your email for that market overview dashboard with the top 200 brands across all of California. And I hope to see you next Tuesday at 9 a.m.